What we got a sense of quite quickly was that we could trust the decisions that were made by Accord Projects. Someone that knew that journey and could guide me every step of the way. That was crucial. We connected with Azar from Accord Projects, and it's just been incredible delegating the uncertainties and the practicalities being revealed to them. When we first grappled with the uncertainty of where to move and where to go, he was incredibly helpful in just acting as a sounding board and using his experience and providing some guidance as to which site would be best for us. He was there with us from the start. And when this particular site came up, he was quite adamant that this was the one, and this was the one that he could build something absolutely beautiful in. Communication is essential when it comes to trust, and having that direct, responsive feedback from your design team is absolutely crucial. Whenever we think of something, whenever we have a question or whenever we have a clever idea, we were able to just put it on WhatsApp and received what was, in the vast majority of circumstances, fairly instant feedback. That spoke to me because I'm very mission and vision driven. So for me, I like to connect with people that get that and get the idea that patients need to be at the center of everything that we do. So part of the conversation was very much about that values alignment. What was also included in that conversation was this conversation around what our values were as a practice. So as I asked very early on, what is it that we're trying to build here? What's important to you? What ideally should this new practice look like? We had conversations about flow and how patients would come into the practice, where they would sit down, how they would interact with reception, how they would move through and access the various health professionals. From an efficiency perspective as well, what we know is that increased space between GP consulting rooms and the treatment room also creates a lot of extra time and a lot of extra effort for GPs to use those vital nursing services. Part of our design thinking was also, how can we make it so that patients have to travel as little as possible to get from one space to another and still access the care that they need? The first thing you see is photos of the old cottage. Having been there for me and for Gurleen for the last 5 years, but for some of the doctors having been there for 20 years, it's a very important piece of history. Right? So it means a lot to us as a team, but it also means a lot to our patients. What I hear from patients as they enter the door now, guaranteed they will talk about how they feel when they see those photos up in the wall. And the way they've been framed, the way they've been positioned centrally is just extraordinary. Then you've got a reception desk, which is grand. I don't think I had realised prior to entering that space how important the waiting room and the reception area is. We've been in a very busy practice for a long time where it's just go, go, go. And here it was, yeah, they had that, but they also had this need to feel safe and secure. And they have this need to feel like they're entering a space where instead of adding more chaos and stress, it removes it immediately.
Representing the legacy of the original building of Rosedale Medical Practice in artwork form was one of the inspiration for the design of the waiting area. We also got inspiration from the native wildlife and the bushland of the new site. We picked up a few very true shades of green and carpet from the trees in the local area, along with the shades of sandstone from the old medical practice building.
The change that we needed to make was that part of that waiting room area needed to be changed into a lobby area. It was an emotional challenge for our team because we were worried that our patients wouldn't have the waiting room experience that we wanted them to have. I found that dealing with Accord meant that the reassurance came quite quickly. They understood our concerns, they understood why we were worried about the proposed change, and they also looked very quickly into what, well, number one, could that be stopped in any way? And if not, what would it look like if we then redesigned the waiting room to make sure that the objective, which was to have a warm, open space, was still being met, but in a slightly different framework. But we walked in and we were surprised. It wasn't small at all. It was grand, it was inviting. The feel of it was what we had wanted, which is we didn't want this to be a sterile practice. We want it to be a place that felt like home. We felt that the trust that we had in Accord Projects really took us, a mile further in developing something that would still be amazing and still give us what we needed. What we got a sense of quite quickly was that we could trust the decisions that were made by Accord Projects really early. Just being confident that I had an open relationship with someone that knew that journey and could guide me every step of the way, that was crucial.